shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you. So please, don't hide, just say I'll be there if it breaks, right beside you. Suddenly I know now how it feels. I no longer have to beg or steal. I can stand now on this higher ground, where love is just a sound, where love is...
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday morning. Welcome to Coffee and Cresties. I'm Crystal with Gecko Diva, and I got my, well, it's probably not going to be able to see it, goal digger mug this morning, and at the tail end of a cold. So we're drinking tea this morning, yogi tea, actually. It's like a green tea, kombucha green tea, which has really cute little messages on the tea bag. So today's message, I didn't even read it yet. It's find your unity in your service to all. Tea is definitely something that helps me. I know when I'm feeling under the weather. So yeah, definitely not coffee today, but switching things up. Hope everyone's doing good. My friends up north, I know it's getting cold. I heard that some people were hit with some snow this week. A little fortunate here outside of Ottawa. We haven't received snow yet. It's a bit frosty, but hey, you know, we're in November, so it's bound to happen anytime soon. Yeah, and it's been definitely a fun week for sure. Busy as always. I'm gearing up for 15 minutes of lame, and if any of you have any ideas and you want to throw things at me for campaigning, I'm all ears. We're about 6 days away from launch. I guess we're the 10th. So yeah, so it'll be the 16th it's launch. And I'm also kind of contemplating whether or not I wanted to take a little break in December from Coffee and Cresties to really be able to focus more on the campaigning and engaging with everyone and doing some more long format videos on YouTube to talk about the projects I'm working on and to kind of have people have an opportunity to get to know me a little bit more, and you know, and why you should vote Gecko Diva. I mean, for all you gecko people out there, I would definitely say vote for me just to be able to promote geckos within the contest, because everybody else is basically ball python breeders. Not knocking the ball python breeders, but I think it would be a great win for our community to have a gecko representative winning this year. But yeah, so I'm going to put a poll out this week, I think. I'd like to know everyone's thoughts. I'm all for continuing the Coffee and Cresties in December, but I was contemplating maybe taking a bit of a break. I know that everyone's busy. It gets a pretty, hectic time of year with the holidays. So I'm going to put it out to the public to hear what you guys want. If you all want me to keep doing this, then I'm all for it, and we'll keep this going on Sundays. Let's see what we have in the chat today. I got Cassandra D in the chat. Good morning, Cassandra. We have Aaron in the chat. Good morning. Lots of people in the chat this morning. Jennifer in the chat. Good morning, Jennifer. Sorry, see, I may cough once in a while. I apologize. How do you guys say this? Ferrunik, good morning. Patrick LSG, good morning. Welcome. Thanks for chiming in the chat. Aaron says it's still warm here in Florida. I think it's always warm in Florida. Like, your cold weather is not exactly quite the same. Bill's in the house. Good morning. Thanks for joining. We got Sly Kittens in the house. Good morning. Thanks for joining. And Aaron says, sure, breaks are needed. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this since March. So it's been a good, a good role doing this essentially every Sunday since March, right? So it's end of March. it keeps me quite busy, to come up with a schedule and to be able to put these together. But I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. Sandra says there's no snow where she's at. Gecko Cove's in the house this morning. Good morning. We got Cresty Millions in the house. Good morning. Rouge Rivers in the house. Good morning. Oh, thanks. You're going to vote daily. So I'm going to, there's two things I want to do for the voting, and kind of to get, basically to remind, because I know we're all busy and sometimes it's hard to remember. I'm going to create, not an event, but like a group, I think, in Facebook for all of my Facebook friends to really be able to sign up if they want to and get the reminders and to hear what's going on and to see the posts. The other thing I need to figure out is how to do a channel on Instagram, because I know a lot of people have been using channels. I tried to sort that out this morning, but I have to change my account settings, because I guess channels are only for people who are influencers on Instagram. And I think the category that I have for my Instagram is not exactly the right one. So any tips or trips, tips or tricks that you can send my way, I'm all ears. I'm going to be doing some Google searches after this to try to figure out how to change that account setting to be able to use the channels. We got Vincent in the house. Good morning, Vincent. Thanks for joining. Lots of people in the house this morning. Look at that. Scott's bringing in a whole bunch of people to come support. John's in the house. Good morning. And we got Glowing Geckos. Nicole in the house. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. I think what we'll do is we'll jump right into our tea time. So let me bring this up. All right, I got two fun things to share with you today. The first one, I'm sure a lot of you've seen it posted, but we have a baby born in the community, Tiki's baby. David shared this this week. So congratulations. I want to send my congratulations to him and family. Very exciting that finally the little baby is born. And a little, as he posted in there, a little mini gecko pooper, a future pooper scooper that's going to help out. We know that, I know for myself, my son has been a huge help, at times when I need him to help with the geckos. So congratulations, and very happy for you. The second positive thing I want to share, which I thought was really cool, is at the NARBC in St. Louis. They've been running auctions on Palm Street. So we've been seeing a lot within the gecko community, a lot of the Palm Street auctions being shared. A lot of people are hopping on board. It's been a really nice avenue for a lot of breeders to be able to have the opportunity to reach a wider audience and to be able to showcase their geckos and sell geckos that they have. Now, I know our guest today, Scott, he's also on Palm Street as a seller. But this is the first that I've seen it kind of branch out into non-plant, non-geckos. So what they've been doing, and they did the first one yesterday, and there's another one today. I guess it starts at noon, from noon to 2 Central Time. And it's being, I guess, sponsored or brought to you by Redline Shipping. And what they've done is they've gone around to the different vendors and people at the NARBC to have a variety of different reptiles and arachnids, because I know yesterday Tarantula Cat had a tarantula in the auction. And there was also, I think, some jumping spiders, ball pythons, of course. I saw some lychees yesterday. So it's definitely a wide array of different reptiles that they're, excuse me, that they're including in the auction. And it's kind of neat to use this as an avenue to also kind of promote the show, right? Because you have people that aren't able to go necessarily to the show, but can maybe participate this way. And there's also, so here we got some comments and products. So yeah, so there's products there. Tarantula cribs was one. And yeah, Jennifer is saying tarantula cribs. They had a couple different of their enclosures available. I saw merch as well that was there. A lot of people were doing animals and merch packs, clothing, other items as well. There was a whole list. Unfortunately, I missed it late. I got to it late yesterday, but definitely will be tuning in today. So if anyone wants to see what it's all about, check out their site. All the information is there. I had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out where it was on Palm Street, but you have to look up NARBC on Palm Street, and they have their own, profile there. So that's where you can go and watch it. But yeah, definitely exciting to see it kind of expand. And I did hear rumbling of some ball python people, breeders, like kind of mentioning Palm Street. And maybe we'll see, some other different species, like different breeders hopping on with different variety of animals on there, which is kind of exciting. Jennifer, you're saying it's under the reptiles tab. That's good to know. I know I was having a bit of a struggle to try to find it. I would imagine it's probably easier to find when they're live, because when you click on it, all the live stuff kind of pops up first. Yeah, pretty cool. Let's pop this out. We got a couple more people jumping in. Andrew, thank you for joining us. Good morning. And my hubby's in the house. Hi, G. Good morning. Happy Sunday. Got to sleep in this morning. Before we bring on Scott, I wanted to let you guys know I'm going to be using the different intro today, the older one. I went online and was notified this morning, and I don't know how I missed this earlier, but I guess it didn't give me like the actual notification pop-ups, so I had to go in and see them. But many of you know the intro song is my own song, and that I did when I was with the band, and so was the closing. So I try to be very careful about the music that I use to avoid having copyrights. But I guess the little jazz song that I had for the new intro, the Learn a Latte one, got tagged for copyright, which I thought was a little strange because I took the music from a tool that provides music that you can use for these type of things. So I'll have to look into it a little bit further. I tried to hustle this morning to redo the intro, but I'm having to struggle with version issues and trying to find the old song and being able to bring that over to the new intro. So it's a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to need a little bit more time to do it. So we're going to use the old intro to bring Scott on this morning. I just thought I'd give you all a heads up. That way we don't get a little copyright mark on it again. So let's go ahead and make sure I pick the right one, and we'll jump right into it. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. If my waterfalls are too good, tell me. I can turn them off.
Oh, no, I can't. No, they're fine. It's what a beautiful background, eh? You're so lucky to have such a beautiful... Are those orchids behind you? And
it's a bush.
Oh,
but I do think it's like over there. You can see the orchids.
Okay.
Hanging.
Awesome.
And I hope it's quiet. And I never saw the express O in the beginning. I thought you were talking to me.
For what? Sorry?
So I thought you were speaking directly to me.
Well, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and happy to have you. It's been the Florida takeover so far this month, eh? We've had a lot of Florida friends hop on and showcase their geckos. So I think what we'll start with is maybe sharing a bit on how you got into geckos, how long you've been breeding geckos, you know, how you came up with the name, a little bit of background about you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try to do the fast story. Can it take 5 minutes? It's kind of a funny story, but a little strange. But let me tell you, when I grew up in the middle of Pennsylvania, in a town that had one traffic light, and I used to walk to school. Well, everybody walked to school. There's no buses. So on the way home, there was a pet store called Gearhart's. It was like a mom and pop store. Well, back then there was only mom and pop stores. And so I would go in, and it was a filthy, filthy, filthy place, to be honest. So I used to stop in on the way home to clean cages. Oh, my curly tail. We have a curly tail lizard. He's now running at my feet. He thinks I'm going to feed him. If you look at my basket, he eats out of my hands.
Oh, fun.
Anyway, so they gave me a ball python when I was like 13. My parents didn't allow any kind of pets. So I used to hide. The attic came off of my bedroom. It was a door that went aside. Can you turn it off? It was a door that went to the side. And
Okay.
so I kept my secret pets in the attic. And one was a ball python. That was my first venture into reptiles. And I had them for like 2 years. And I used to walk home and get frozen mice when it was time to feed him. But I had to be sneaky about it because I wasn't allowed to have any pets. And
Yeah.
one time I was coming home, I went to feed him. There was no frozen for like a month at this place. And I couldn't ask my parents to take me to the city to get one because I'm not allowed to have any pets. So I brought a live one home, and my intention was to kill it before I fed it to the snake, but I couldn't kill it. So before I went to bed, I was sitting in my boxer shorts. I'm 15 years old, right? My boxer shorts, and I put the snake between my legs and the rat between my legs to feed it, and the snake went to get the rat, and it scared me. I lifted the rat, it bit me where he shouldn't bite a man. But I could, and I had to actually call my brother, who was like 7 years old at the time, to bring something. He brought me a pencil to stick it in to get the snake's mouth off of me. And
Oh
of course,
my goodness.
really bad. And over the next week, it got so infected and so inflamed, like
Oh
horribly.
no.
I got so and I had to eventually tell my parents that something happened down. I didn't want to tell them I got bit by a snake. So I ended up in the emergency room with a massive infection because of the snake. And I had never ever apparently came from a snake, and they assumed that it came from the neighbor girl next door from her braces or something. My first venture into reptiles, and I had them for like 20 years. Even when I moved, my parents finally found out when I moved from there to Utah, when I had to carry the snake out of the attic, that I actually had a snake.
So they still didn't even know after that whole incident happened. They just assumed it was the neighbor girl. And you're like, yeah, we're going with that.
And poor girl, because my dad went and talked to her dad.
Oh, you're getting people in trouble.
Turns out she was kind of okay with it because I told her I was going to tell my parents, but she was a lesbian, I was gay, and it was a perfect cover for both of us.
It worked out well, right?
And then I was a park ranger for 20 years, so I didn't have any. It was not good for reptiles because I was moving every 6 months to different parks, different states.
Yeah.
And eventually, when I was in Florida, 2017, I ended up getting pneumonia that they thought was asthma for a long time, and so they were treating me for asthma. I ended up being in the ICU for 5 weeks, and then the regular hospital for 3 weeks. But in the hospital, I started watching Tiki's videos, David's.
Okay.
And I became obsessed with reptiles again. Ended up getting into dragons, then quickly turned into leopard geckos, and then quickly turned into cresteds. And then it quickly turned into Miguel had a room under the house because I had too many.
You had too many of them.
I guess you say as a deprived kid not allowed to have pets, made me have an abundance now. Like I have chickens right beside me. I've bred and showed boxers for 30 years. I bred and showed KVs, guinea pigs for years, rabbits. Now it's mostly crested geckos. I have a lot more besides cresteds, but it's mostly cresteds.
Yeah. Is that the one that you just like? What was it about cresteds that really sucked you in where you're like, this is the one for me?
I had the leopard geckos and the bearded dragons, and Miguel was one day looking and he said, "What's this?" And I had seen them on Tiki's videos, and it was really cool. And I said, "That's really cool." And I bought one, and it was just, I don't know. It seemed like it had more personality than my geckos. I
Yeah.
tried to humanize it. I made it feel like it liked me. It wanted to climb on me. And one, you know how it goes, potato chips. I had one, I had two, I got three. And now I probably have like 50 or 60 adults.
Yeah.
Well, I guess 60.
RC Joey says, hi, neighbor. Pops on.
I see everybody. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for everyone for being here. So how did you come up with the name? Like, you're in Miami, so I mean, I guess that definitely is part of it.
It's been like 6 months to actually have an official name, because the name that I like the most, there's a guy in Tampa who breeds leopard geckos, and his name is Lecco my Gecko. And I thought that was like just such a cool name. And I needed to have a name that wasn't like Scott's Geckos, or something that was like catchy and grabby.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm from Miami. I used to live in South Beach, and South Beach is Art Gecko.
Okay, yeah.
When I came up with the name Miami Art Geckos, and my shirt, Miami, but it has like a picture of South Beach, the Art Deco buildings. In my mind, it was like made sense. Like Miami Art Gecko, everybody's gonna know that means Miami Art Gecko.
Yeah.
And I realized, if you live in Miami, you probably don't know that Miami Beach is Art Deco, but that's how I come up with the name.
Oh, it's a play on words. I love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I saw so you're on Palm Street, and I saw that you had some merch on there, and I completely got drawn in. You have was it coffee and is it Geckos and Coffee shirt that you have? Which I'm gonna have to get a.
Oh yeah, there's a shirt too. Miguel does all that. They claim to do any of that. Miguel designs the shirts, the graphics. He designs everything on the coffee mugs. Miguel, if you're hearing me, you should bring one out at the coffee mug. I can show them. But he designs that stuff.
I didn't know you have coffee mugs. I'm gonna have to get myself a coffee mug so that I can use it here.
He designs all that, and
that's awesome.
We have so he makes the shirts and does that here.
That's awesome. So how many years would you say now that you've been breeding geckos, like under Miami Art Geckos, and really pushing the brand?
Breeding probably like 2019.
Okay. So you were before COVID.
Yes. but not enough into COVID where I made all the money.
Yeah.
What happened and prices started going crazy. I hardly had anything to ship. He's bringing one of them.
No, you froze there for a second. Oh, there we go. Oh, awesome. Oh, I love it.
And they're
that's
different
super
colors.
Cute. Oh, that's cute. Awesome. You have there's a pretty tight knit group of people, in Miami that are like crested gecko breeders and stuff. Like I see a lot of chatting online, and like you're pretty close. Like, what's I'm being a Canadian, a little still out of I guess touch of what shows there are. Do you have many like expos around you, or do you have to travel for expos? Like, is that something that you do, or
always have to travel? We have one show a year that's close to us, because I'm actually like 3 miles south of Miami, so I'm closer to the Keys than to Miami. And Miami has a show. Well, they had one last year in November or December, I can't remember. It hasn't been announced yet when it's going to be next, so it's not even, I don't think it's going to be this year. Pembroke Pines, which is like North Miami, has one every year. That's going to be December 22nd. After that, the next closest show is like West Palm Beach. That's an hour and a half. It's not far. Tampa's like 4 hours. Orlando's like 4.5 hours. So they're all kind of far, and they're all north. So I can't go east, west, south. It's all north. So it kind of stinks that way, that everything is north and everything's kind of far.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's nice.
Do you end up, have you gotten into doing a lot of shows, or is this something that's new that you're starting to do, or?
I didn't do them at first. I did my first show 2 years ago, and I'm kind of a recluse and socially awkward, which is strange because when I was a park ranger, I used to, besides doing research on reptiles and other animals, I also gave guided hikes, guided tours. So I got very used to talking with people there, but it's just weird at the shows. I just felt, I don't know. So I would go to shows, but I never vended shows. And like 2 years ago, Gabby from Morph Menagerie called me and on Friday night and said, "Hey, Scott and Miguel, we're in West Palm Beach doing a show. You need to come." And we're like, "We're going to go." And she goes, "No, you need to come and vend. I'll give you one of our tables. We have 3." And I was like, no, I can't do that. And she said, "You have to. If you want to do geckos, you have to start doing this. If you want people to see who you are and talk to them and get other people into geckos, you have to do this." And so actually put me into it, and we went and actually had a blast. But the odd thing was I kind of looked like a little bit like a homeless person at a show because I didn't have anything. I didn't have a banner, I didn't have a sign, I didn't have a tablecloth. I literally took like 20 geckos and I had like an 8-foot table. So we had like a 20-foot table with, or an 8-foot table with like 20 geckos, 25 geckos on it, with no table, no sign. Gabby went to write a sign to say Miami Art Geckos on it. But I actually had a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, you know what? With those things, you got to start somewhere, and I think that there's it's expensive to invest in that whole setup and banners and tablecloths and displays and all that. Like it's a huge investment to put into that, and if you're going to invest the money into that, you kind of want to have a really good idea as to what you want as a setup, right? You don't want to just kind of throw and get whatever, because then you're like, oh, if you want to change it up, then you feel like it's wasted money, and then you have to go and invest more money to do it differently, right?
Yeah. And then it came like a whole bunch, like I needed an official logo. I needed to make all the signs, the 8-foot banners. I didn't need to, but I looked kind of stupid sitting at West Palm Beach with nothing. Who are you? Are you supposed to be here?
My husband popped up a comment saying, "Please tell me that the December 22nd show is decorated for Christmas."
I don't know if it is going to be, but I am. We're bringing a Christmas tree.
That's awesome. And that segues into another thing, because I do have a video that you shared me. You are really big on Christmas decorating at your place, which I think is fabulous, since you have like palm trees and all that. Is this something that you do every year, or so I guess you're super Christmas fan?
We are. And it started because when I moved to Florida, it's so un-Christmassy here. I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania, where Christmas, you can't wait for the snow and you can't wait for the cold. And so when I moved I moved all over the U.S. for 20 years as a park ranger. But when I came here, it was like, it's Christmas. It's 80 degrees outside. That's so like un-Christmassy. So I started decorating. It just grew, and it got kind of crazy. And of course, cars started coming, and the more cars started coming, the more like with Crested Geckos, the more I started saying, okay, we need more. So now it's like the whole, we go up the mahogany, up the bimbos, up the palm trees. Yesterday we're doing candy canes up the palm trees. Today, I'm not sure if we're going to do this or what we're going to do. We have a lot of inflatables that there's no room to put because we have a jungle in our yard, that we put them on the roof.
Well, I'll pop it up. I turned the volume off because I didn't. I'm so paranoid now with the copyright, so I took the music off in case we got something for the Christmas music. But you did share a video with me, and like, it's stunning. The setup. Like, so you do a setup like this every year. Like, you go big on your setup, right?
Yes.
That's phenomenal. And like, how long does it take you to do this? Like, over time?
Not because it's a lot of work, because to be honest, like, see the purple lights in the tree. Miguel won't let me go up the trees anymore. My job is now to hold the ladder, because several years ago, my Jamaican neighbor was standing there talking to me, and I actually fell through the ladder. Like, I went rungs of the ladder, but my shoulders got stuck. Then I landed on my ass on the ground. And since then, he's the one who climbs up in the trees. And I think it's worse when somebody else is up in the tree, because like a little monkey, he goes up to the top of the ladder. It's one of those tall ladders. And to get like way up onto the top, he's going to be like bouncing around in the branches. Like, if you fall, you think I'm going to catch you, or what are you doing? I used to do that too, but it's different when you're watching somebody else.
Yeah. And I would imagine like that's a lot of decoration. So like, it must be so much fun putting it up, but like, how is it having to take it down after?
It's not as actually last night we were doing the green tree that you just saw, and there was like 3 or 4 strands that were really high up that we kept saying we're going to get it, because we had to actually put a ladder on the roof to get to the top of that tree, which is kind of a little sketchy. And when we took them Gecko last year, we're like, okay, we're gonna get it next. We'll get everything, but we'll get those next week. And then it became next week, and then it became last night when we were putting them up, and the lights were still up there. And when we plugged it in, it's like, oh yeah, they still work.
Yeah.
So I'll bring. It takes a long time putting them up. We started before Halloween, only because it doesn't take as long as you think. We're kind of pretty fast. I know what we're doing. The thing is,
Yeah.
I have full-time jobs, so it's not like I have a lot of time to do it. She called sick yesterday and today, so that we can do lights. But it's usually we do like an hour or two here, an hour or two there. Neighbors are like, "Oh, it takes you guys so long." Well, because we just do an hour or two here, and you see us in that hour.
Yeah. Instead of like slamming it in all in like one day, and then like, you know, investing the entire day to put it up and just being beat at the end, right?
Then it becomes a job. So we do it a little bit at a time. We're gonna do some today.
Yeah.
At least I
We had, so we're a big Christmas family here. Before our basement was taken over by these reptile rooms, it was like another kind of living space, right? With a couch and a TV and stuff. So we used to have 2 Christmas trees, because we'd have one down here and we'd have one upstairs as well. So now with this taken over, I might bring a little one in here just to kind of cheer things up, maybe in the background. But we had started getting into decorating. My husband likes to pick up those blow up ones, but the problem we were having is the dogs, because we're on a farm, like we let them out and they'll run around, and they would run and they would just clothesline themselves off the strings that are like tenting and like to brace them. So they'd run and you just hear a big bang and a yelp, and then the whole thing would like fall over, or they get excited and they want to jump on them and puncture holes in them, right? So you know, it's like you get one, but it would barely last the season. And we don't and he's saying, and the wind. We don't have a lot of trees. So the problem is that when the wind gets really, really strong, everything really just kind of topples over and then wants to take it away. I'm still trying to convince him when it's warm out to like go and maybe plant some evergreens and stuff in the front, so we have more trees that we can decorate with lights. And maybe I've seen those cool permanent lights that you can get on the house, where you can actually change the colors, like as you have different holidays and seasons. So we'll see what we'll do this year. Gerald, you saw the video. You gotta like pick up your game on this Christmas light thing here.
We actually put those things that shine on houses on the ground and shine them up to the trees. So the trees have lights on them, but then the leaves of the trees underneath have all that stuff on it too. And then we have one of them on the tree that shines down onto the road itself in front of our house. It's like the snowman and stuff.
So the first year we have some of those, the ones that will shine the lights on the house. The first year we had that, we didn't think of it, and the way it was angled would shine kind of through the window, because we have full windows on the front and on the side. And then the problem was it would shine through the window, but then you'd see it on the ceiling, and it drove our cat bananas, because you would see this light just kind of going around, and he was just like chirping and like, you know, really wanting to go nuts for these lights. So we have to be a little bit more strategic on how we're putting it on the house, so they're not shining through the windows.
And the wind on the roof inflatables is a challenge, because we have so many staples on our roof to hold the inflatables down, but it doesn't. I mean, we're in Florida. We're surrounded by water, because I have like the Gulf that keep Biscayne below us. The wind
says create a GoFundMe and buy me 10,000 lights. I think like,
you know,
how's
the
the
weird thing
maintenance
is,
for that for you? Like, that's a lot of lights. So like, I guess you have to check them every year and stuff, eh? And like make sure that.
Yeah. Yesterday was one of those frustrating days, because we did the green tree, and right at the very end, Miguel came down from the ladder, and then they all went off. And we figured out it was the first string of lights in the bottom, so we changed the first string of lights. And then the second string of lights were having a problem that I was having to like jiggle around the plug and it would work. But I told Miguel last night, okay, we need to buy one more string of green lights, because I'm not every day going to come out here and jiggle around this stupid thing. But the LED lights work so much better than the old style lights. One light burns out, the thing still works. And surprisingly, the electric bill does not go up very much with all those lights. Maybe $100, that's all. It's not a lot. And we decorate inside just as much as outside. Miguel has a collection of Santa Clauses, like they're like 2 feet high, and we probably have I don't know how many, but I'm gonna guess 40. And he puts them on a stand beside the Christmas tree. And then all the you'll see at Christmas, all the windows get garlanded. We do a lot.
So I think what we'll do is we'll jump into some. You sent me some pictures of some geckos that you're working with, and we'll start talking about some of the projects that you're working with.
I apologize in advance for my pictures. I don't have a camera. I just use my camera phone, and mostly everything's on my hand. If you see my Instagram, so I try to do like real pictures.
The pictures look great. So this, I see you have a DAO group. So tell me about these geckos and what your project is with these ones.
I have two projects with the dowels. I last year put a lily white that had a few red spots, a red lily white that had a few black spots, and I didn't know what to do with this black spotted lily white. And I had like three, and I said, why
Okay.
don't I try to with my dowel? I have some red dowels, and so I have like a separate project where I'm trying to do lily whites and red Dalmatians, and then just light colored Dalmatians. I'm not in
Okay.
too much with it. I don't mind the tigery pattern, but I don't like when the tigery for me, I like when the tigery pattern takes over
Okay.
Dalmatian. Um, but it's not as easy as it looks, because you think you buy um, really spotty Dalmatians and it's gonna directly right away pass on to offspring, and I found out that's not really true. You just have to.
Yeah.
It messes with some Dalmatians, and not with others. So I'm hoping this year will be a more spotty year.
Well, and it's a tough one too, because even when you get the hatchlings, like a lot of them, like you have to wait to see how the spots are going to start popping up and developing, eh? Like,
Reds and Dowls kind of stink that way, because they when they're born, they have tiny spots, and it takes them a while, as you know, to actually show some spots, especially the super Dowls. And when you set them young, you have to explain to people, trust me, it's going to get more spots. There's not many. It's like the same thing with Reds. You know, the Reds are hard, especially penguins,
yeah.
because they're not too red when they're born. They're mostly born brown. In my experience, the ones that
Yeah.
are born red actually turn brown when they grow up, and the ones that are born brown get more red as they grow.
Okay.
But that's another thing that's hard to explain to people. Like, here's a 10-gram red lily whites, and they're like, it's not red. It's going to be red. You know, so it's
Give it time.
you have to hold on a lot of times later to, one, even sell it with people believing you, and two, they're more expensive, obviously, too.
Yeah. Oh, we got some love in the chat here. You got Michael says this 6 a.m. stuff definitely calls for an espresso. So I'm guessing, Michael, you're on the West Coast and 3 hours behind.
Brian, who's my
Brian's in there, says I love Scott.
you back.
And you have Emma that joined in the house too.
Sorry, I wish
Says, hey Scott, sorry I'm late.
I can actually see this chat on Palm Street. I can't even see it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you were telling me that the other day, that it's a bit of a struggle when you're doing Palm Street because of the chat kind of scrolls, but it's a little small.
For me, I mean, I'm almost 60, so it's tiny, and like when you're showing, it's different when you're the person who's buying, you see more, but when you're showing, you literally see like 3 lines of chat, and so if people are chatting quickly, it just goes like so fast, and it's hard to hold the camera, and then scroll
And then
back.
Scroll and comment.
So
you telling me you can't multitask like 3 different things at once?
No, I can't. I'm 60 years old. But inevitably, you start getting people saying, "Hey, I keep saying hi to you. You're not answering me. Sorry, I'm not on purpose being rude." Hi, Jennifer. Aaron.
Heather's in the house.
I'm saying hi. You're not answering me. Sorry.
Yeah. Heather says, I just have to hold my red dowels to properly pick holdbacks at this point. Yeah, I mean, it takes time, right? Like, you gotta, like, I find like there's some genetics where is really easy to get like seller's remorse, because if you sell them too small, and then they'll turn out to be like this spectacular gecko later, and you're like, I should have held on to that one.
I mean, there's definitely a learning curve. I see on Palm Street a lot of people tend to go to the bigger geckos, and I get that you can bring them like right now, but I also try to tell people try to buy at least some small ones because there's a definite learning curve, not in red animations, but in everything. They change so much, and it's kind of nice, especially on your own, to see how your lines progress. And that took me a
Yeah.
few years. You know, I started breeding them in like 2019, but my first couple years, I was thinking, oh my gosh, all these things don't look like their parents. What's wrong? Selling things much too young, and then later people would send me pictures. Oh, look how red this one got. Oh my God, I sold you that. So you know, there's a learning curve. Like hold on to them later to see how they progress, and it helps you as a breeder see what happens, particularly in your own lines. And
Yeah.
of course, when you buy a lot of young ones, you end up with a lot that you probably want to end up selling in the end because it's not particularly what you wanted, but you learned and got to watch them grow and see how they progress.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, Gecko Cove says that maybe starting Palm Street soon. What are the best tips for beginners you wish you knew before jumping into your first live?
What I really wanted. Oh, on Palm Street.
Yeah,
Um,
some
I don't know,
tips
Palm
for
Street.
newbies hopping onto Palm Street. What did
This
you wish you knew?
I don't know. I was one of the lucky ones that got to be in the beginning of Palm Street. So it's actually exciting and fun because Palm Street was mostly a plant-based app. Well, it was.
Okay.
Well, yeah, mostly, and there's other things besides plants, but it's mostly a plant-based app. And so reptiles were kind of new, and it was kind of cool seeing people get on saying, "What is this? People are selling reptiles on here. What are those?" And you'd have to explain what Crested Geckos on, or then they
Yeah.
would buy one. And so there's a lot of education, um, a lot of teaching, a lot of learning. I think mostly a lot of the palm. You still get the people coming in saying, "What are those?"
Mhm.
But it's kind of nice in the fact that okay, the bad part is you end up selling things cheaper than you probably would otherwise, but
Yeah.
you bring up new people into the hobby, which is good for everybody, whether you're Palm Street or not. You get people that are suddenly into crested geckos and leopard
Yeah.
geckos and all kinds of other geckos and reptiles in general that have even saw them or even gave a crap until they were just happened to be on Palm Street one day and saw my live or anybody's live and clicked on it and said, "What are those?" and bought one and then ended up getting 20.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's I think that's going to be a key thing too, like moving forward for the industry. Like even like you're saying, like you have people that are already used to being on Palm Street that use it very, often and they're very active on it, but because it was such a big plant app, they do kind of go hand in hand. I know before I started getting into reptiles and stuff, I was really big into plants. And then I got into reptiles and I'm like, oh, and I can merge the two together,
Yes, I was
and it's bringing in that new interest, which is something that
whole
is
yard,
kind of needed.
whole yard is the jungle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Like it's definitely, I think something that's gonna,
Fish,
that
the
that's
fish.
they're really positive. What's that?
Below me. Said we're into fish too. Below me are
Okay.
ponds. Like over in this side is the koi. Here are the oh my gosh, what are the fish with the big heads? And over here are cichlids. Everybody's
Okay.
quiet now because turn off the pump. It's like they all sink
Yeah.
to the bottom. That's why.
Because when it's on, they're all kind of up and on the top and wanting, I guess, because my husband had koi a long time ago, and we had some here when we first moved in, but they're very interactive. They'll come right up and eat out of your hand, and
Sorry, I'm getting the spotlights on my head. It looks like Miguel's inside with a gun getting ready to pop my head.
Yep.
Okay, a little bit.
No, that's awesome. Let's see what the next photo is. I love this one. When you sent that photo, this one's stunning. So tell me about this gecko.
Um, that just popped up last year, but I ended up getting like six out of a random breeding. I have a male that came from that's actually called Doctor Who from Brian,
Okay.
and the female is her name is Amaya. She came from Zengex, and Zengex lineage I really loved, and I love Druid, the male. So I was kind of hoping to get something like that, and I started getting babies popping up like this, which are when the white started popping up, it looks like snowflake all over. It looked amazing.
Yeah.
And I actually took a couple to Flora Fauna because I wasn't sure. I had three males that I was thinking of keeping, and I took them to Flora Fauna for other people, like to look at them to see help me since I was kind of newish. Which one should I keep? What should I do with the others? And it's kind of cool because I felt awkward going to Flora Fauna because it's a lot of bigger breeders, which I don't consider myself a bigger, long-time breeder. And I took some geckos, and Tara Lee was right beside me. Before the show started, she bought the sibling to this one that looked just like this one, and she said it was the
That's
first time
awesome.
she had a gecko for like 8 years. It made me feel like, oh wow,
And you're like, oh, thank
yes,
you.
maybe I am a breeder.
Aw.
Um,
That's nice though.
but
That's reassuring, right? It kind of like it's a nice feeling to have, especially when you're in a position where you're feeling a little maybe self-doubt, right?
right, or at least maybe I was going the right way
Yeah.
because it took me several years to figure out who to pair to who, what geckos to pair
Yeah.
to what gecko. It's not as easy as it seems. So my goal with this line is to produce more that look like that. So I can't wait for this year. Although for the last like 3 months, he's like hovering at 35 grams. I'm like, can you? And I give him crickets like almost every day. Can you hurry up?
You're like, come
And
on.
he eats a ton. But just yesterday, weight he went up to 37. Okay, finally you're starting to gain some more weight. You better hurry up. You only
Yeah.
have a couple months.
Well, it'll be really cool to see, you know, the hatchlings that you're gonna have with him, with the pairings that you're gonna do, right? Like, it's really cool, like all this, like you're saying, all the snowflaking, kind of the spotted white everywhere, and it brightens it up, but it's nice with the contrast because it's not all
And
like blocky.
this year, so I have babies now that are growing that look like this from the same pair.
Okay.
And I just had a question if they're from Gecko Cove. Yes, we do have fancy goldfish. We have fancy goldfish and koi in the same pond.
And I think Crusty Millions said, was it flower horns, the fish with the big heads?
Horns.
There
Yes,
you go.
Michael or Wenky, whichever one you are. It's flower horns. Sorry.
Awesome.
We used to have flower horns. We used to have like 40 fish tanks in the backyard, mostly Miguel, and we had
Okay.
like 75 tanks with flower horns in them, and they would live for a while, and then they didn't live very long, a year or two, and then they would. Now the ones we put in here in this pond, they've been here for a couple years.
Okay. Very cool. And this red group, tell me about these guys.
I love reds. Reds are my jam, but they also can be a curse because, like I mentioned before, it takes a long time for a red to actually start to look. I mean, I know what I'm looking at now, but to show other people. But the one on the bottom, that's Karma. She's not really too fired up here, but she's a darker red and gold and white. So for me, that's really striking. And those two above her are both her daughters. So she's really good with producing reds, just like her, or really bright.
Very consistent.
And one is fired up really nice. The one isn't fired up so well. But those are her two daughters that I kept from last year, so they're going to be breeding this year as well.
It's awesome. And reds are such a pain to take pictures of.
Yes.
You have to get like the right lighting for it to really pop and show.
Reds are one of the things. Reds are like always on Palm Street, or Palm Street vibes, because Palm Street has a reputation. It's like the geckos never really look as good as they do, like for real. But when you put a red on Palm Street, it's like double worse. And reds on camera, you can like, even like on my iPhone, I'll look at the red and then look at it when I'm taking a picture, and it's like, it doesn't look like that. Like reds really, I don't know what happens with reds, but the cameras really like change them a little bit.
And it's tricky too, because you could like try to get it right also on your phone, and you're like, okay, like this is the right color. And then when you post it on Instagram or on something, it'll like alter the color and it doesn't look the same. I'm finding the same thing with anything that has tangerine in it. Like the orange is either too saturated and it really pops, or you can't tell it as much and it's faded. So some of these colors is a little tricky, and I think it's a tough part as a gecko breeder to try to showcase, you know, the animal the way it would actually look, right? You're trying to give the true image of that animal to be able to show it off or sell it, promote it, whatever you're wanting to do. But like rats are definitely a little bit more of a difficult one to do.
Yeah, and you're right. You do get a picture that looks good. When you post it, it actually looks like you altered it, like
Yeah.
really bad compared to the other ones. It's like, oh my god, now people are gonna think that. Which is why most of my Instagram, because I'm into reds, and I would get that a lot. It's why most of my Instagram pictures aren't like this. It's pictures of the geckos on my hand, because in
Yeah.
the beginning, I was showing red. People are like, oh, what did you do? I mean, I don't remember the terms. What did you do to that picture to like? It's like nothing. So now here it is on my hand. There you go. I didn't
Yeah.
change it.
Well, and I had that issue too. So I started taking pictures outside because I would just get the daylight, right? And then you'd have
Yeah.
the comparison on my hand and the grass. And then I started getting like people messaging me saying, oh, that I was editing it because of how green the grass was. And I'm like, no, like my grass is literally just that green. Like it's that bright because we have a good summer and we've had a lot of rain. Sometimes it's brown, sometimes it's green. So like it makes it a little bit more difficult sometimes, but I find like even like taking it outside, having it on the tree or on bark, or you have a comparison of other colors that people are used to seeing so that they can
Yes.
say, okay, it's not been edited, right? HKD Gecko says, Scott, I'd love to get a female like that to pair that to male pair to smoke show.
Yeah, I saw the comment. I was waiting to answer. I've been dying for one of his geckos. I keep looking at. People need to check out all these people's websites because
Yeah.
I tell people I know I have a lot of followers on my Instagram, but you can buy followers on Instagram. Not that I have. It's just a couple of viral videos, which ironically weren't even about geckos. But just because somebody has a lot of followers doesn't mean they're good. They have the best geckos. You can find geckos from people that have like 200 followers and they have the best geckos. So I always follow everybody you can find, because just because somebody has a lot of followers doesn't mean they have a lot of good geckos. Some of these people that have smaller followers have really good geckos.
And that's always a tough thing, and I know that's a popular discussion, is the follower thing, because it's very tough to try to build that that network, right, and really increase the number of followings. But I've always been of an opinion that I'd rather the people that are following my account be people who are real people who are following because they're interested in seeing the animals and engaging with that account, as opposed to when you're paying for followers. Well, you have a whole bunch of numbers, but then what do you get out of it at the end of the day, right? Like when you're posting photos and videos and you're looking for engagement, you're not going to get much out of that.
Right. And just one more thing to bring up, Kay, that you just talked about. You were talking to me before the other day about David Tiki's with the That's who won Best in Show.
Okay. Oh yeah, HKD. That's the best in show for out of all of them, right? Yeah. I remember it was a lovely gecko.
It was.
It was a tricolor, wasn't it?
Tricolor, yes.
Yeah.
And his name, I think, was Smoke Show.
He'll confirm in the message. Is it Smoke Show that you're talking about? Was that the one that won the Gold Standard Gecko Club at Florifauna? We'll see. He'll comment in. Gecko Co said, yes, red photos never look as good in person. Imagine breeding just red gargs. Yeah, I feel your pain because you do a lot of red.
These aren't pink. The pinks are even harder. And I have pink geckos too, but they're really hard to take pictures of.
HKD says, yes, it was. It was Smoke Show.
Vincent.
Emma, you're lucky. I've got a Smoke Show relative. I might just have to, I'm thinking of doing Florifauna in the spring if I can swing it. And I might just end up shopping while I'm there. Do an import. Send everything to Canada.
Was right by me, vending.
Okay.
A lot of good people.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You have more time to socialize there than normal shows, but it's never enough anyway.
Let's see what the next one is up on the list. So we got another one here. So who's this one?
That's from Nirvana and Valhalla. Nirvana is my favorite lily white, hands down.
Okay.
She lost her tail, which is kind of sad in a lily white because lily white's tails are probably the prettiest things on them. Um, but Nirvana throws me the best tricolors, in my opinion. I love them.
We have a
Weird
picture of
story.
Nirvana later on too. I'll pop her up.
Oh, you do? I didn't know if I sent you one.
Yeah.
This gecko, right when I was taking this gecko, you can see he was thinking about jumping. He did.
Yeah.
And this is monstera that's growing around my gumbo limbo tree. He jumped down, went around to the front of the gumbo limbo tree, and I didn't want to like mess up the monstera. And geckos never really are that fast. They're never fast for very far. And I just thought he was sitting at the gumbo limbo on the other side. I walked across around like 5 steps, and I couldn't find it. I started digging. I literally started pulling out the air plants that are all over the ground. I went outside and got Miguel, like, emergency, I can't find this gecko. We literally looked for like 5 hours, could not find it. Miguel was watching the camera because there was a camera right behind me because this is beside the door to see if it went across the driveway to the other side and didn't see anything. I literally got up at like 2 in the morning and was out with a flashlight for like an hour or two, shining it in the trees, thinking, okay, maybe he's up in the tree. And then I get up early in the morning, was looking, and then in the afternoon, Miguel and I are out there getting. In my mind, I'm thinking, it's gone. Some bird got it. I don't know what happened. It's gone. And then my neighbor pulled up, and she knows that, well, they knows I have reptiles. So I walked over to the other side of the driveway to tell her, if you see a really pretty lizard, it's mine. Please call me. And while I was talking to her, I was standing right by the mahogany tree, and there's we have a bunch of coffee plants in our front yard. And the top of the coffee plant, which was right around my waist, I looked down, and I thought it was a tissue on top of the coffee plant, and it was the gecko just sitting right there. And I literally started crying.
You must have been so relieved because that's so stressful.
Right? I started crying. I turned around to Miguel like, oh my God, look, like just sitting right there, almost like saying, can you please take me? I don't like it out here anymore. Perfect.
Well, that's the stress, right? And like, you're right. Like, some of them can be pretty fast, but for the most part, they'll jump and then they're pretty easy to catch. And like, I'll find like when I take pictures outside, especially in the summertime, like when the grass is mowed and stuff, it's like a little bit spikier grass. And if they like hop off my hand and hop into the grass, they're not like running through this grass. They're just kind of going really slow through it, and you can catch up with them. So
it's like they get a state of shock. Like, what is this? Where am I?
Yeah, totally well, like they're like, oh my God, they stop.
I literally pulled so many plants out of the ground and trimmed. That day I trimmed so many front because I needed to do it for Christmas, but now I needed to do it because maybe the gecko's in this bush. Let me cut it down. I cut so many things down looking for this gecko, and I guess the whole time it was on the other side of the driveway.
Emma says you have the best tricolors.
But I want to get there one day. But thank you, Emma.
And I think that is that the same one on the bottom, right?
It is.
Or is this a different? Yeah. Okay.
That is the same one.
And who's the other one? The one on the top?
It's from a different breeding, but I couldn't decide which one to keep, so I ended up keeping both. I ended up having like more males than I probably need, but I've done that because of past experience. I have. In my adult tanks, I probably have like 60 females, but not all are breeding age and not all I breed. Some of the females are on like 30 grams. They're just juvies growing up. But I have probably like 25 males, which is probably way more than I need. But in the past, I mean, it gives me variety because people get tired of buying the same geckos, bred to the same male. But also I've had where I've had some great males and tried to breed them, and it's like, okay, what are you doing? I've been waiting. Like Valhalla last year, I was so excited to breed him, and it took him. I had gave up on him. I thought, okay, I guess I'm rubbing off on the gecko, and he's gay. I don't know what's wrong with him. He doesn't.
It's not doing his job.
Finally got together after like 4 months at the very end of the breeding season. I started getting fertile eggs, and I was like, oh wow, he actually figured out what he's doing here. But I've had that happen several times, even where they just never breed, and if that's the only male you have. So like these two one's a backup for the other one. If one doesn't work, the other one hopefully will.
Well, that's the tricky thing with holdbacks, right? Like you have to be careful. You don't want to just hold back the one of the best of everything, right? Because at the end of the day, like there's no guarantee that one that you held back is going to produce.
Right.
So it's that fine line of not hoarding, but maybe keeping back a little bit more than,
It happens with too, but it's kind of different when you have 50 females and you have like and she doesn't decide to breed because it's like a one shot, or if she doesn't breed, you're just done. Little funny
Yeah.
story about Nirvana, my favorite lily white. When she came to me, she was sold to me as a male, and I really wanted her to be a male because things that are that nice, like a corner, I wanted a male. And
Yeah.
I was new. I never had really looked for pores. It was one of my first geckos I ever bought. But she had cresticles, so I thought it was a male. It was sold to me as a male. I never really looked to see if it was a male. And as it got bigger, cresticles got bigger. And so her first season, I bred her, thinking it was a him, to 4 different females, and nothing's happening. It was my first year breeding, and I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? How am I not, at first I started pairing them in tubs separately with me on the kitchen table staring at them, and then I thought, okay, maybe I'm embarrassing them because they're doing nothing except staying away from each other, leaving them in their enclosures, which is what I do now anyway. And then I started leaving them together for like a week at a time, separating them, and nothing happened. And finally one day somebody said, hey, have you ever checked to make sure it's a male? And I said, but look, on the pictures I can even see that it's a male. But it wasn't. And it wasn't. Had it happen where the females
you're there pairing and trying to breed lesbian geckos, which only works with morning geckos.
Right. So I figured out what sex she is. She breeds good.
The Good Gecko's asking if you have gotten into the sable game yet, and if so, what your plans are with it.
I have a few sables. I have an adult male now that I'm breeding. I started to breed to a couple high white tries. I also have 3 sables right now, 2 boys and a one is an adult. The other one is on the verge. I have a sable lily white, and it's on the verge of becoming an adult. And I won't breed him into my xanthics.
Nice.
So I want to do something with xanthics. I think even empty bats would be kind of cool. The thing is, sables, they're so new. There's so many things you can do with it. But it's also like your project. Like if I breed my sable to my xanthic, I'm not going to get xanthics my first year. I'm going to have to wait for like a couple more. It's a couple year project, like a 3.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the newer genetics coming out, right? Like it's so unknown how it's going to interact with other genetics and like other things at play. Like it's kind of like it's an exciting time because you get to work with it and kind of pick focus projects that you want to. But when you're doing things like xanthic and with recessive, I mean, that's you're doing hets, and then you're holding back hets, and then you're growing up the hets, and then starting. Yeah, Good Gecko says I would like to see a red sable too.
Yes, and that's another thing I'm going to do is to reds.
My husband commented in here, says Valhalla. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's one of my hard. I think a lot of people have the same problem as what gecko in general. What gecko do I breed to this gecko? It's hard to the way I do that myself because I'm OD. It's hard for me to figure it out. I print pictures of the geckos in color. So I print like all my males out and I print all the females out, and then the female one by one, and I say, okay, Valhalla, which males are going to be good with her? And I have a list of like 4 or 5 that are good with her. And eventually I just start crossing off one and crossing off another until I'm down to like the one gecko. But stupidly, sometimes down to that one, and I go into the gecko room and I say, okay, this is the one that I picked for Valhalla, for Nirvana. I end up putting another one. It's like a last minute. No, I'm going to do this one.
Last minute change.
It's hard when I'm looking at Valhalla or Nirvana, for instance, thinking what male do I pick? You have to go through everyone in your head, and you're going to forget somebody. So that's why I print the pictures and just okay, this one, no, yes, no, yes.
Yeah,
and it can take a long time.
Yeah, for those of you wondering what Gerald, my husband, is mentioning here, that we have a Valhalla and she weighs 1,000 pounds, he means a horse. Okay, so we have a horse named Valhalla, but her nickname is Vala. But yeah, it's not 1,000-pound gecko. So, um, Andrew is saying, how long do you usually hold back a gecko before deciding to release or keep? Is it dependent on
It's
morph, color,
longer
etc.?
than a week in the past. If sometimes I have them before they're like more than a year old before I decide it's time for them
Yeah.
to move on. It's kind of hard, especially when you have OCD, because you can always think of, okay, I can use it with one, I can use it with that one, and plus I don't want to have hundreds and hundreds of geckos. I try to keep it limited. I have two full-time jobs, so it's kind of busy. So you just have to figure out what do you want, and then figure out what you want to keep, and
Yeah.
and remember that they're going to change lots. In the beginning, I was selling a lot of geckos that I should have probably kept because my eye wasn't trained into what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm still not good, but I'm much better than I was, and so I don't try not to sell things too young anymore. If they're starting to look like they're going the right way, I keep them for at least 6 months, maybe even a
Yeah.
year before.
And I think, like you're saying, like it takes time to train the eye and stuff, but it's also depending when you're working with different genetics, but also the piece with um doing different pairings. Like you can work with certain things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's gonna prove out when you're doing pairings, right? So I think as you get to know the geckos that you're working with and what they're capable of producing, it becomes a lot easier to kind of make those decisions on holdbacks when you're like, well, I know that this gecko is very consistent in producing this. Or so when you're
Right.
seeing hatchlings, you've seen that type of hatchling before and grow up, so you have a better idea of how that is going to maybe pan out, right?
Right. So a lot of, like this year in particular, I've been selling a lot of adult females on Palm Street, and I always
Okay.
question myself when I see people selling adult females. Like, why are you selling that one? Does she not produce? Does she produce? Does she look pretty and produce ugly things? What's going
Yeah.
on? And a lot of times it's just people. I bought a lot of stuff when they were young. I wasn't sure
Mhm.
what direction I wanted to go in, and now I ended up with like 100 adults, and half of them that I really wanted to breed, not because anything was wrong with them, like
Mhm.
pinstripes. I have a lot of really nice pinstripes, but I decided that I was gonna mostly get out of pinstripes and cut down on my pinstripes and do more harlequins instead, because that's what I like more.
Yeah.
A lot of people like
Fair
the
enough.
pinstripe, so I've been selling like a lot of my adult pinstripes, and they're really nice, and it's really hard because I know they're good and I know what they produce, but I have to make that decision. I have to cut. If I want this project to grow, this one has to kind of go. So
Yeah,
it's
and I
kind of
think that's another plus too when you're selling things where you have the ability to talk to people, whether it's at an expo or on Palm Street, where you can kind of give that background, like that reassurance as to why this animal is being for sale. Like when you're just you're looking for animals for sale on the website or whatnot, people might be like, oh, like why is that adult female for sale and then but you have the ability on Palm Tree to say, oh, I really like this gecko, and then kind of going to that spiel that you just said, explaining, not fitting into my projects and this is why, and it makes it a little bit easier to market the
right.
gecko,
You have to
right,
really,
and to find into the right person.
right, and you have to really trust the people you're buying from too, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of, not a lot. There's evil people in this world everywhere. I've bought geckos from people that I don't buy from anymore because the pictures were altered like a lot, and you get them and it's like, what is this, even the same gecko?
Yeah, but that's
You have-
disappointing when you get that, because you get so excited and then when you get it shipped to you, you're like, "Oh," you know?
and then I don't want to start any drama, so I was the pat. That doesn't really happen anymore. But I would just like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna sell it somewhere, but sell it like it really looks like, because I don't want
Yeah.
to start any drama with somebody.
Yeah.
So you just,
Vetskex says some of us are very happy when you sell the adult females.
yeah, Tom and Shelly got some, or they got some really nice ones. Sometimes
So
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna pop into this you can finish your sentence. I was just popping into the next gecko on the list, the lily white.
I tend to never keep any lily white males, but I
Okay.
kept this one because I want to breed him into a couple cappuccinos,
Okay.
really dark cappuccinos, because I would really like to make some. I have some really nice red fraps, and I love them, but I would really like to try to produce some really dark fraps.
Okay. Like
So
dark,
that's the
dark
reason
base.
now. And he's a little bit
Yeah.
bigger now. I think he was like 30 grams, but now he's pushing 40 grams.
Okay.
But he's really dark. I like it.
That's awesome. And then we got another. Who's this one here? This
Pinstripe.
one's a pinstripe.
Yeah, not really fire. It's one of the ones that I was. Do I sell this one or do I keep it? So I'm keeping a few pinstripes, and this is the only pinstripe male that I also hope he does breed. Well, I have a couple other ones that I'm selling. So, but this is one of them, and his name is Marigold. But I need to check it because it was one of those. I usually, when I have pseudopores, a lot of times they turn female, but this is one of those pseudopores and it turned male, and he was named Marigold. So I don't know if I need to change his name or just leave it.
Leave it. We're not changing names.
Well, he's never bred yet.
Yeah,
That's one of my changing names is one of my pet peeves, and you know that.
Yeah, we talked about that, and just to bring it up, like the discussion was what your stance is when you're buying a gecko that's a breeding gecko or is already proven, and changing names on that gecko because you don't like it. And I had brought up when Scott and I were speaking earlier, in with horses, there's actually an old wise tale where it's unlucky to change a horse's name. So it doesn't matter how ridiculous the horse's name is. And I tell you, there are some pretty ridiculous horse names out there. When you buy a horse, it's frowned upon. You're supposed to keep the name, because if you change it, then you're like, basically it's going to be, a lot of people show with the horses, right? So it'd be like bad luck career. The horse is going to injure itself, or you're basically putting a bad luck on your new horse that you bought. And I've kind of taken that with the geckos. Like when I'm buying geckos, I try to keep the name, and it's also like for lineage purposes. Like if that animal's produced other animals with another breeder, then I want people to know that, this is the male or the female now that I've taken on into my collection, right?
That's happened to me by accident, and that's my pet. Like if I sold this gecko to somebody right now and they wanted to change the name from Marigold, big deal, because he's never been bred. And obviously anybody can do anything, even if you buy an adult from me or from anybody. But I come from the dog show world. I showed and bred boxers for 30 years. I actually showed and bred cavies. I should some of my pictures of my cavies, but I bred silkies, and their hair on a guinea pig cavie would get to be like 2 feet long on both sides.
Oh, wow.
And I and curves. But anyway, they even had ear tags. They were registered. So that's where I come from. But let's say, okay, this has happened to me. I bought a gecko from somebody. And I told you this story before. I don't want to mention names, but I thought the name was something else because it was posted with what I thought was its name. So when I got this male, an adult breeder male, I kept the name that I thought it was. And for 2 years, I bred this male. And from the same person, he's a pink gecko. So from the same person, a couple years later, I bought a female that was from a different lines, which is what I wanted, a different line. And right before I bred them, we found out that they had the same father, because the name that I thought my gecko was not his name. And so the female I bought was actually the daughter of the one that I had. So that's the, let's say I sell you a gecko and I name him Valhalla, and you change it to Butts.
Yeah.
And I could buy a gecko later from you not knowing that it has the same father because you changed the name. That's why it's a peeve of mine. It's not because, just because of that.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. And for like lineage tracking too, like, if it makes it difficult when you're getting animals and you're trying to make sure, like you're saying, like that you're not wanting to inbreed. I know within Canada, there's a lot of similar lineage that's floating around, and we're a smaller pool of breeders. So the likelihood that you're going to get something that might be related to something else is a little bit higher here than it would be in the States, right? Because we're just a smaller numbers of breeders. So if you're having animals where the names are changed, then it makes it a little bit harder when you're trying to do projects to make sure that you're keeping them not inbred, right. and that you're actually putting together different lines and pairing and stuff. So yeah, definitely that can be a struggle for sure.
And
Um,
then breeding could be okay in certain instances, but if you really don't want to do it and you do it unknown, you would be doing it unknowingly, which is
yeah, yeah, and I mean that happens. Sometimes you buy something and it doesn't even have a name,
right. But at least you know who
right?
the parents were.
Yeah, or the person you bought it from is the one that changed the name. That happened to me on one, and I reverted it back to the original name. And then we got Nirvana.
Little frog butt. Lilies
So
look so pretty with her
pretty.
tail. And geckos can lose tails for any reason. And when I first got into geckos, I was going to be the good breeder, the one whose geckos never lost their tails, because geckos lost tails because something was wrong. You didn't take care of it. You mishandled them. They weren't treated right. In my mind, when you're new and you think you're going to be the person that does everything right. And she was
Yeah.
my first gecko that lost her tail. I almost cried like, oh no, I'm one of these people. And she lost
Oh,
her tail literally right during this picture. She was on the log and I was taking a picture. And when I took like 5 or 6 pictures, and she was just walking, and I was taking pictures as she was walking to see which one would come out the best. And as
yeah.
I took this picture right here, I noticed her tail wasn't even there. Her tail like literally had just fallen off
Oh,
and fell. So I don't know, I guess. And the weird thing was, she was like 2 years old, and I don't know what stressed her out about getting pictures, because I've always held her. She's jumped out of my hand like all geckos do, like 30 times. Um,
yeah.
I guess I don't know why she just lost her tail right there. But
The
since then,
wind
I've
blew
had
on her the wrong way.
no reason. I sometimes you go into clean gecko cages, and I don't know if there's a thunderstorm, and they just lost. There's a one gecko in a cage, and it just lost his tail, and it was alone at night. So I guess maybe thunderstorms can make it happen. I've had before where I use, sometimes I have the pool noodles, in their
Yeah.
enclosures for them to rest on. And I had once when I saw something weird on the pool noodle, and I took it off, and it was the gecko's tail wrapped around the pool noodle. It's
Mhm.
like it jumped and left the tail there. It was literally like a pool noodle. I took a picture and put it on my Palm Street, but some people didn't like it because
Oh.
it didn't take care of his geckos very well. And I thought, I was just cleaning their cage and it was stuck there like that. I mean, it didn't
Yeah.
just happen. It happened the day
So
before.
weird.
Like, you just jumped and left your tail. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Gecko Kennels says you have some nice geckos in Canada. I want to get some, but import fees stop. Yeah, I have to say though, it's a little bit nicer for U.S. buyers because of the conversion is in your favor. So if you're looking at something that's like a $500 gecko in Canada, it's 500 Canadian. So it's in theory cheaper because you're bringing the price down when it goes to American, right? So yeah, Sly Kitten says with conversion, it does level out a little bit more as your dollar is worth less. Like if we're looking at something in the States, you're looking at $1,000 gecko. Well, for us, it's like going to be over $1,300 with the conversion,
Oh my
right?
God.
So like it costs us more because our dollar is worth less, and then you have the import fees on top of it. So the
Wow.
import is a little bit of a pain, but when you find the right animal, I always believe that it's definitely worth the investment at the end of the day. I think that was the last gecko that we have, and she's so pretty. I love her. So we've hit over the hour mark. Why don't I give you the opportunity to really pitch? Like, where can people find you? Where are you on what platforms? Go ahead and share your info, your details.
I'm on Instagram, everywhere Miami Art Geckos. Instagram, Miami Art Geckos. Facebook, the same. Palm Street, the same. My website is not the same because, ironically, we started doing a website under Miami. Well, the Gecko started doing a website under Miami Art Geckos,
Okay.
and then we stopped for like a year, and then we went back. And when you start doing something and you go back, it's like GoDaddy or whoever decides that name is now worth something, and so
Oh
they want,
no.
like, I forget what it was, like a couple thousand to own the name Miami Art
Every
Geckos.
time that happened to me. Yeah, every time that you have something and you lose it, they bump up the value.
Right? And it was like, I'm not paying a couple $1,000 just to own that name, so forget it. So our website is Miami Art Gecko. without the S.
Okay.
I said, okay, you can keep the Miami Art Geckos. Nobody's ever going to use it. Just sit
Yeah.
down forever. We just use Miami Art Gecko.
Well, sometimes
And the
it'll pop up. I had one that I lost and they wanted like $1,500 for it. And I'm like, no, you're out. I'm not paying $1,500 to get that URL
no,
back. But I just got an email back saying, oh, we have this available, and they give you like a much lesser price. And it's because it's been sitting there for a couple of years and no one's actually picked it up at that price, right? So they're like, okay, like maybe we'll give it back to you.
Miguel
At that
actually even
point,
contacted us, no. And we're like, nobody's going to buy this name. Who's going to buy Miami Art Geckos besides Miami Art Geckos?
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
probably some.
and that's the problem. Someone else is going to get it, but then they're just copying a name that's already in existence everywhere on social media, right?
Yeah.
And how often are you on Palm Street?
I have been doing it every week. I
Okay.
think I missed 1 week. I try to do every week, but I'm guessing it's getting closer to the winter. I don't have a whole lot of breeder animals left to sell,
Yeah.
so I guess I'm going to do it probably for the next couple weeks and then take a little break because
Okay.
winter gets hard. I mean, it's never winter here. 81 degrees here right now.
Yeah.
But it always gets harder to ship other places.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like it's warm where you are, but it's not necessarily warm if someone in New York is buying it.
Right.
Makes it a little bit trickier.
Really somewhere else, or it's always warm here. Yeah, shipping's
Yeah.
never a problem here. It's going somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I really enjoyed having you on the podcast. It was an awesome chat, and I honestly appreciate it. And everyone, go and follow Scott's stuff. I'm sure most of you have already been following all social media and stuff. But if anyone in here is new to Miami Art Geckos, and anyone who's catching the replay is new to Miami Art Geckos, definitely go and give Scott a follow. He's got some pretty spectacular animals. Really nice
Thank
stuff.
you as well too, because you can find a lot of information on a lot of these. There's a lot of platforms like this, and Crystals is very. I've watched a lot of her old episodes, so go watch them. Number one, for the song that you didn't get to hear here that she sings is so. When you hear it, guarantee you're going to be singing in your head for like an hour after. And don't try to find it online like I did many times because it's her own song. You can find a lot of information because there's episodes with David, Quincy. Quincy's my neighbor from the Gecko Room.
Yeah.
You can find a lot of information from a lot of people, and there's never one answer to any question. You just need to hear everybody's answers and formulate your own plan. Everybody does things a little bit different according to where they live, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no such thing as too much information.
Yeah, no, and then that's the whole point of this, right? The podcast is to kind of bring people on and bring people together and share as a community all the stuff that we've learned, and even with working with projects, things that we've learned on different projects, and yeah, the more information that we could share with one another, the stronger we get as a community overall.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to put you backstage. Do you have any last words before you go backstage?
Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Love you all. And as David from Tiki's Gecko shirt says, chill guys, it's just geckos. Drama's
100%.
never ending. Just have fun.
100%.
Have fun. Walk away. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. I'll see you backstage.
Thank you.
Hey everyone. What an awesome interview with Scott. He's awesome. Great chat. Thank you so much for everyone who joined in. And a lot of people participating in the chat today, which is great to see. It's great. Like, I definitely encourage everyone to ask questions in the chat. Like, this is why we do this live, right? So that we can pop up and really engage with each other and share as much information as we can. I will be back next Sunday. I have Brian from Altitude Exotics that's going to be joining me. And then we'll see. I'll put a poll up to see whether or not we're going to keep going through December, and see if what you guys want to, I'm going to let you guys vote and put it to the test. And yeah, thank you very much. Keep an eye out for the 15 Minutes of Lame promotion. And I know my husband's on tonight with his podcast. If you're into ball python stuff, he's with the Lamest Chat on Fat Man Nation at 7 p.m. tonight, before the Fat Man show, which would be on Snakes and the Fat Man is on at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So have an awesome Sunday. Have a great rest of your week. To all my Canadian people, Monday, happy Remembrance Day. And I will see you next Sunday.
Shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you.